Hey guys, hello everyone, welcome. This is International Master Asaf Givon here, and I wanted this today in this video to present to you my new video course that I've done for the Remote Chess Academy about strategic piece exchanges in chess. This is a topic I always believe to be extremely important, and in this video, short video that I'm going to do right now, I want to present the audience with some examples of how bad judgment in exchanging pieces could be extremely bad to your position. Sometimes it can be as bad as, for example, blundering a pawn or a piece, because sometimes when you exchange the wrong pieces and you end up having a very bad position, a strategically losing position, it can be sometimes even more painful than having, for example, a position with a pawn down where you still have some chances, some counterplay. When you get a position when your opponent has a much better pieces than you, it might be even worse, sometimes even more, let's say, painful over the board. So I wanted to present a couple of examples. Basically, one example where one side was an amateur player which had made very bad decisions, and this led to his very quick loss from a normal position. But also I wanted to show later on at least one example from a grandmaster practice where even very strong players could make very bad decisions regarding their piece exchanges, and this might eventually cost them the game, as we shall see. So the first position in front of you was actually played a lot of years ago. I was playing with the white pieces. My opponent was a very young, talented player at that time. This position is move number 16. Nothing very special about this position. If you ask me, if anything, black is doing very well here. His pieces are better developed. He have these 3 pawns in the center, which might be extremely useful later on. Start advancing. The knight has a nice outpost on d4. But because of very poor judgment and bad piece exchanging in the next moves, black lost this game extremely painfully, as I want to present to you right now. Black now played the move bishop to f5. In itself, not a great move, but also not a terrible one, but the whole concept behind it was completely wrong. I played a normal developing move, knight to d2, trying to get my knight into the center. Black played bishop to e6. Now it might not seem like there is too much wrong with what black is doing, but this allows white to exchange or make a very good exchange on his side, bishop to d5. Now, why is this exchange so good for white? There are basically 2 reasons for this. First of all, black is possessing the advantage of the 2 bishops. In general, when the opponent has the advantage of 2 bishops in an open type position like this one, it generally is a good idea to exchange one pair of bishops in order to deprive the opponent of the bishop pair. Second thing, black is exchanging basically his wrong bishop. That bishop on e6 is a pretty good bishop because most of black's pawns are situated on dark squares, which make actually the other bishop pretty miserable. He cannot move around too much. So we can say that black has one chronically bad piece or permanently bad piece. And as I will talk also, as I'm talking in more detail in the course about the piece exchanges, when you have one chronically bad piece, you should be very wary of exchanging too much other pieces, because you might find yourself in a position where you have that one bad piece against your opponent one very good piece, which might be a very bad scenario. This is eventually what happened in this game. Black kind of casually just exchanged the bishops, I think this is also a mistake. Black should at least wait for white to take on e6, which slightly helps the black king to get centralized and at least not losing a tempo, because when black takes on d5, it also allows white to exchange the bishops under good conditions, because he also centralizes his knight into a very good outpost. This is another theme we're going to talk about in the video course, about how to exchange pieces under the best possible conditions. It's also a very important aspect. Black played knight d4. So we can see that this knight on d4 is a pretty good piece. So in the next couple of moves, the right strategy for white would be to try and exchange that knight for his knight on d2, because if this happens, we will have essentially a position where white has this extremely dominant knight on d5 versus this very bad bishop on e7. So first of all, white plays the move f4, pretty normal, trying to activate that rook on the f file. Black plays king e6 in order to avoid any kind of X-ray attacks against his king. White plays b3 to safeguard his pawn on c4 as a preparation for the move knight f3, because if white would do that immediately, the pawn would be hanging. Black plays rook to g8. White plays knight f3 as planned. And in this position, once again, very poor judgment by black. If we kind of anticipate what happens later on, I think black must try to keep that knight on the board, play a move such as knight f5, and at all costs try to avoid the type of scenario that happened in the game. After knight takes f3, rook takes f3, this is the dream position for white, where he has this extremely strong knight on d5 versus this basically tall pawn on e7. This bishop is really not functioning as a proper bishop at the moment. This position, I would go as far as saying, is pretty much nearly strategically losing. Even though white has no material advantage at the moment, he has no checkmating attack, there is nothing black can do in the long run against such a strong knight on d5. You can find the full game in the description. I don't see any need to go any further than that, in order not to make this video too long. What I wanted to illustrate is how extremely bad decisions regarding the piece exchanges essentially led to blacks losing this game instead of having a pretty good position. That being said, the opponent at this game was not a very high rated player. At these times we were probably both around maybe 2000 rating, pretty average club player rating, I would assume. But the second example I want to share, this one is actually played by very strong players. The two players in these positions, in this position, to my knowledge, are grandmasters. But I found this position to be extremely interesting in terms of the piece exchanging ideas. It is white to move right now. And when you develop a good intuition about the piece exchanges in chess, there are some certain exchanges that doesn't even come to your mind. Basically, you can just discard certain exchanges out of general understanding of the position. You can just, at the brief moment, look at a certain type of exchange and understand that it's going to be very bad for you, so you don't even need to calculate it. Why am I saying this? Because the move that white played in this game, and I'm repeating, that's a very strong player with the white pieces, maybe 2500 rated player, is just wrong on principle. This move should not even be considered, to my understanding. White is in a pretty dominant position here. He has the rook on the open file, while the black rook is extremely passive on b5, doing essentially nothing. White has this knight on e5, nicely centralized, but having said that, he's about to get exchanged. Now, before I show you the move that was played in the actual game, I wanted to show you also another move that white should avoid. which looks very tempting on first sight. That is the move rook to c7. Looks like almost a no-brainer, right? Putting a rook on the 7th rank, attacking both of these pawns. But this move allows black to have the better of the piece exchanges. Black can now eliminate this very strong knight on e5, force white to recapture with the pawn, doubling his pawns, then play knight d5. You can see that not only this knight is being centralized, all of black's pawns are being defended. And now white is going to suffer a great deal in the next part of the game, because this knight on d5 is a terrific piece if we compare it to this miserable bishop on g3. So this would be a very bad decision by white. But what white did in the game is actually maybe equally bad. He played the move rook to c5, which I found to be an horrendous move, exchanging the very active rook on c1 for the very passive rook on b5. He's just very bad on principle, exchanging an active piece for a passive piece. Black was delighted to take on c5 and play the move knight to a4. Now white's pawns are also slightly weak. The pawn on c5 is hanging. White was forced to play the move knight to d3. And here black is showing a very good judgment in this position, playing the move bishop to b2, attacking the pawn on a3, even allowing white to exchange the knight for the bishop, essentially reaching this type of position, which at first glance might not look that bad for white, but this is actually a completely losing position for him for two reasons. First of all, as we mentioned earlier, this bishop is just an empty piece. It can attack nothing on the black's position, but this knight is extremely powerful. He can jump around pretty much freely on the board, attack all of white's weak pawns. And also one thing that contributes to black's complete domination here is the fact that his king is going to come to the center extremely quickly through f7 and e6. He basically steps on light squares. White cannot do nothing about this, and black won very easily later on in this game. So the move rook c5 might be, in a way, even worse than, for example, white playing some move which hangs a pawn in this position. It might be maybe better to lose a pawn somehow. For example, to illustrate that, the move a4 actually kind of makes sense, because if black plays knight takes a4, it allows the white rook to infiltrate on c8, and if the rook takes on b4, it allows white to play the move a5. The knight must move and then infiltrate on c8. So he basically gets some initiative for his material. So even the move a4 makes sense, which gives up a pawn. So this wraps up this video. I wanted to show you in these two examples how important is the decision making, which is regarding the piece exchanges in chess. For some players, it's sometimes a pretty random decision whether to exchange or not, just what it feels like at that moment. As I wanted to show you in this new course, is that this is the thinking process behind it is extremely important. I will show you different techniques and ideas that concern the piece exchanges, what kind of things we need to consider, what kind of things do we want to achieve by making the right decisions, and what kind of things do we need to consider. So, really hope you enjoyed this short video showing some practical examples of bad piece exchanging. Hopefully you can do better in your games, and I wish you all the best watching this course. Thank you guys. Bye bye.